Hello, welcome to It Aint New, the show that represents the history of ethnic minority groups in the USA and where knowledge becomes power. If you don't know, now you know. We're Nyke,
Boa,
Estar,
your very real hosts. Like, even if you look at TV shows, one of the things that I'm doing right now is actually filming something on the number of 90s and early 2000s TV shows when it comes to quote unquote representation to what we have now. When people were asking about representation, they were like, okay, we're not seeing Black people in the movies. We're not seeing Asians on TV. We're not seeing this. And I'm like, wait, all of the stuff I grew up with, there was a lot of us on TV. There was a lot of us making these, like, and then I go, what happened? Well, somewhere in the 2000s, things started to get too Black. Like, I rewatched Smart Guy. And there was an episode where, oh, I can't even remember the line, but I do remember responding to it just like in my head being like, oh, they couldn't play that today. That's too Black. And remind you, Smart Guy was on Disney Channel. And on, I think it was Sister Sister that was on the WB.
correct.
And UPN, something like that. But Smart Guy was on Disney Channel. But then you get early 2000s. I mean, aside from the fact that he was obviously getting older, but they were almost graduating from high school. After you graduate from high school, you don't necessarily have to follow them into college. Like, that could have been the actual end. But they didn't, the storyline. But they didn't end because of that. They didn't end because Taj was getting older and he was no longer, like 10 years old and cute. As in, like, adorable cute.
Right,
He's
right.
a very good looking person, but I mean, like, just adorable and young.
Like a kid kind of cute.
Right. He was still a kid kind of cute, even when they were going to be seniors. But no, we don't get that. And then now you get all these shows. Why do you think Hollywood has a horrible problem with remakes right now and reboots?
I mean, besides the fact that, like, one, why do we need a reboot? And two, when you have a chance for a reboot, why make similar mistakes in your casting?
Because the same things get
It ain't new.
right. just they like to do it over again. But again, like, I'm like, okay, even with, and this is the crazy part, I saw clips from The Color Purple.
I'm seeing that there's a lot of tension.
There should be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that went down that, again, people didn't want it to be true, but again, it kind of is. But that's another thing. Like, when people go, oh, why are you calling out the Black person when the white? No, I'm calling out whoever was in charge at this point. And there was a Black person in charge, and the Black person did the other Black person dirty. Let's just be real. Like, let's just be absolutely truthful on that. And this Black person has money, so I don't understand what, again.
Wait, The Color Purple, that was by Toni Morrison, right? Or am I remembering it wrong?
No. It was by Alice Walker.
Okay.
The Color Purple is Alice Walker. Toni Morrison was Beloved.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Color Purple, the film came out in 85. The first film came out in 85. The book was written, oh my goodness, when did she publish this book? Obviously it was in the 80s or the 70s, something like that. But great book, actually. But the film was also very phenomenal. Casting was great. Like,
the original film.
The original film, yes. We get the remake again. Who asked for a remake of The Color Purple? You could have just, It was a Steven Spielberg film. All he had to do was be like, "Hey, let's just just like y'all
Remaster
put
it.
Titanic, just like James Cameron put Titanic back into the theaters. Why couldn't we do that with the color purple? We
I
didn't need
agree.
a new color purple. Nobody asked for a new color purple. If you wanted it to be for this generation, you still could have just shown the old one. There
You
was nothing
still could have
wrong. There was
remastered
nothing.
it again.
Thank you.
It's not like this is from
So,
like 150 years ago where the technology is not the same.
thank you. Right. So, okay, cool. And then it did become a Broadway like stage play-ish musical, which I never actually saw the stage play one. Like I never actually saw the musical one.
I've heard
So
of it.
it's yeah, I heard of it too, but I never got a chance to see it. So I don't know necessarily like how to compare
Mm-hmm.
the new Color Purple with this one. Um and it was interesting because a lot of when Color Purple first came out, the new one, when the new one was first released, the teaser actually looked really good. I was like, oh, I might have to go see this. Seems like they got a great cast.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't actually show a lot of the music in this one, so no one necessarily knew it was a musical, and I think that was to their detriment as well. Um, the when the movie comes around, though, they're all of a sudden saying like, "Oh yeah, it was great." Like we're seeing some critics being like, "Oh, it was a great film. The casting was awesome." It I think they said it like made so much money. It was like no, I don't know if it was number 1 during like box office weekend or something, but the money fell off real quick after that first week.
I remember hearing
But they
about it
didn't
once.
yeah, they didn't talk about it really after that first
Right.
weekend. Um And there was a reason for that. The controversy coming out about what was happening behind the scenes, how much people were not getting paid, all of that stuff. Then you get to the actual film. And if you look at the actual film as a film, it was okay. But you don't want to say that because we had a black director, a black executive producer. The entire casting was like all of these great people and, black film and TV and media. But I'm like, the film itself, though, was just okay. Like, let's just
Let's just be
say
real
that.
about
But,
it.
right. But you want to, and it's crazy because I'm like, there's no other like that's just what it is. And it's not like we didn't have other films with black people in them that were just like American Fiction was
Yeah.
grand. I loved American Fiction, but not once was that ever put out as, oh, it's a new uh, phenomenal black film. And that's crazy because that's exactly what American Fiction is dealing with. But
Oh, I want to see
uh,
that.
oh, it's so good. It's so good. Just yes, like
Maybe
I
tomorrow.
watched it just randomly. It's a good film. But again, they're just
Somehow
but the
we're
color purple
fixated.
was like peak blackness
Yeah.
and yet
Fixated
because
on
the
one.
director, crazy enough, the director he also directed Beyonce's Black is King, which again, I'm sorry to say it, people, like Beyonce as an entertainer is great. There's nothing I would take away from
Mm-hmm.
her talent and everything.
Right.
But even in Destiny's Child, and this is where people always get like, for me, they always think like I'm being weird, like I'm just hating on Beyonce or whatever. No, even as Destiny's Child, she was not my favorite. And then the way I approach music is completely different from the way other people approach music. Like I just, well, not from all people, but it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So the she can sing, but she was never like the best one in there. So again, even this film, I was like, okay, is this supposed to be the Lion King? What is this supposed to be? And then what is she talking about? And that's another interesting thing as well. And then but it's also random because there was also the thing of people trying to call Beyonce. They were trying to say that Beyonce was white now. And then people were trying to say that Lena Horne was also white. Like, people just discovered The Wiz and they're like, oh, why is this white woman in this? I'm like, Lena Horne is not white. Beyonce is not white. Why are y'all saying this? And Beyonce from the get-go has always talked about her Creole heritage.
Right.
It's in her name.
Right.
We already know black folks in Creole. Like, why? And first of all, there's a lot of black Creoles that are not that light skinned. And then I want people to understand that skin tone is less than 5% of everybody's DNA. And y'all got the biggest problems with skin. But again, it comes back from the source. America. Who also got it from Great Britain. And all they're hating on everybody else who was European.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to the source. It's just...
Again, who is included, who's not? Who is purposefully given extra rules to make it so that, you are not included.
Right.
And then who's like, oh, no, we want to use you so that we're seen as inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And this is why we cannot stand DEI. Yes. And then don't make the people who also have decided to, refer to themselves as people of color as an inclusionary tactic as well. Don't force us into this thing because you want to say you're being inclusive.
That was always like my biggest problem when I was in the corporate world of like, I worked for a white media company. For all intents and purposes, on a regular basis, my team did not make my ethnicity or my race a problem. But then comes around the, oh, hey, we're starting a new like employee resource group for Asian American women. I'd be like, okay, you have plenty in New York.
You want to lead this?
No, I have a lot of other things to do. I don't have the time or the energy, but if you need me to volunteer, I will consider it. Or the worst part was actually seeing, hey, we're going to do a Black employees resource group for the younger generation, right? And you can see a lot of them being like, I don't necessarily want to do this, but I was tapped on the shoulder to do this, and it would look good for my next promotion. And that promotion does not usually come.
Yeah, that happened with my mom as well. I mean, but see, this is the crazy part. Because of what they told my mom, and on paper, it sounded great. And my mom was like, by all means. And my mom is also the type of person where she would like to be making the decision sometimes.
Right.
So she's like, well, in order to be the one making the decision, I need to be in there. And that's actually very true. So
you need to be in the room that it's happening in.
Right. So she's there. Now when it started though, it was great because the guy who was over was just like, okay, we need somebody to do this.
Right.
Okay, what are your like ideas on it? What are you doing? Let's get this down. But then the people who were over him, all of a sudden, he's leaving. And then they renamed my mom's resource group, renamed it, and all of a sudden it's no longer, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should add this. And it's like, first of all, if these people aren't here, why are we doing this? Like, it just, like, what?
Like, does it make sense for it to all of a sudden be Black and Indigenous American group if there is no Indigenous? Doesn't make sense for it to be.
Or are y'all actually gonna go to the point of recognizing that there's a lot of Black folks,
right,
especially in California, who are already Indigenous, but y'all already messed that up. So
yeah,
And now you don't want to admit to the point that you already messed that up.
Anyway, we could keep going on the
Yeah.
on the many examples of how DE&I programs have failed and continue to fail us on a corporate level.
Yeah.
I know,
I mean,
right? Yeah.
And I don't blame the DE&I directors. I know that a lot of them are working.
Oh, sometimes I do.
A lot of them are
Yeah, it
working
was like, it
with like
depends.
Yeah.
but a lot
Case
of
by
them
case.
are working against what the company has kind of laid out for them, and the company's not helping them.
Yeah, very true.
That said,
But
I mean, at the very end of it, to me, right? I'm like, I take as my American right to dissent.
right.
America was born because we did not
freedom-
want to be British.
Your freedom of
So-
speech.
Exactly. So like the biggest right that or like freedom that I celebrate as an American is my right to dissent, right? Let me dissent from DEI.
Right.
You
Let me
can't
be excluded.
don't force me to be included.
Right.
If I don't
Right.
want to be included, this is my American
Right.
right. And what kills
Right.
me is I'm not allowed to say that because this is for me.
Makes
And
you a
yet-
bad
Right.
Asian if you
And yet-
say it.
White people, you can dissent whenever you want. That doesn't give you the right to then include yourself or me whenever you want. If you get to dissent, I get to dissent. And so I
Right.
dissent.
It's like the door is open, but doesn't mean that you have to force me through it. I can choose to walk into that room and walk out if I want to.
And what then continues though is, well, why are you dissenting? This is a positive thing, isn't it? But it's always in this attitude where it's like, I didn't ask for this. You decided
Right.
that you were going to give it to me, and now you're getting upset that I don't want it. That is a
Right.
very condescending and patronizing attitude. Why would I then even more want it? Like,
It's
you
not
should
a gift.
respect
Right.
me and my right to dissent and not get upset that I don't want to participate. To me, I'm just like, as an American, this feels very right to me. And yet, why can't I exercise
Right.
this right whenever I want? Instead of being seen as like the contrary person or worse, you're a good Asian girl. Why are you dissenting?
right.
I believe Ruth Bader Ginsburg may have said something similar to this, where I don't want to be the good Asian girl because the good Asian girl is perceived to be a doormat.
So it's just kind of like, I can say no, and you don't necessarily have the right to press me on why.
Right.
But yes,
No should be the end of it. Well, why don't, if I don't want to explain it, you do not have the right to
Mhm.
get an explanation. That's
Mhm.
really what it is.
And I don't have to also volunteer to be the teacher just because you don't know.
absolutely. Google exists. Look it up.
You know, so it's like, oh, well, if you don't come, you know, our DEI effort is not actually diverse. Sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah.
Sounds like your HR hiring needs to be redone.
So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's just,
By the way, there are actual DEI programs that they don't do like the microaggression lessons. A lot of them focus entirely on their hiring process. In that regards, I'm like, if that's the bulk of what they do, good for them. That is actually where a lot of it should be focused on. Not the, hey, it is Black History Month, let's talk Black creators. And then like not mention a thing.
Let's
the rest
make
of the
all the
year.
government officials wear kente cloth, but fake kente cloth.
I am gonna find that out. I'm gonna find a clip of that, and then literally just put that as a promo for this episode.
Because also kente is also very specific to a
Yes.
certain area
Yes, it
of
is.
Western Africa and a certain country. So
Correct.
you ain't even
That's not
like,
inclusive the way that you thought it was.
no, no,
Nope.
not at all. And I really want to
Nope.
know who put that on
Like,
the list.
I think it was Wong Fu. But they put out a video about how even moving from
Yes,
Chinese New Year to Lunar New Year
to
is
lunar.
still not inclusive because not all
Right,
Asians celebrate Lunar New Year. And I'm
right.
like,
And
how many years did it take us to finally get this information out there?
I think it's
Right.
also, it's not supposed to be called Lunar New Year. I think it's called Lunisolar New Year or something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like not based completely on the lunar
Yes,
calendar anyway, so Lunar New Year isn't even correct.
exactly.
So anyway, there are
Mhm.
many
And
things wrong
actually,
with that.
it could actually be more correct to just call it Chinese New Year. Because it is a thing in China and in for Chinese speaking countries. Vietnamese, they call it Tet. Korea, you guys call it Solo. And it's not even
Solai.
So,
it's not
so
this
live.
right.
Mhm.
So it's not even the same amount of days that Chinese New Year is. It's not even the same
Oh no.
celebration that Chinese New Year is.
Mm-mm.
So then to then be like, well, Lunar New Year, it's like the only thing that is actually kind of continuous amongst all of it is that we all celebrate it around the same day.
You
Right.
know, so then going back to what I was saying about like, please respect my right to dissent. To me, I'm just like, inclusion doesn't work. America is a historical lesson in how inclusion doesn't work. That's not to say we shouldn't work towards inclusivity, but inclusion all the times, blanket inclusion does not work.
Because it erases the unique aspects
Correct.
of every culture.
Yes. And so in one sense, I know people get tired of things like, that's politically correct, or like we have to think about the DEI. And I'm not saying we should get rid of any of these things. It's also,
we need to be critical of it.
Even for people like us, where we have like thought about this and have a defined opinion about it. To me, I just keep coming back to, like, if you want to do it and you can do it respectfully, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very bottom level, do not seek inclusion. Do not seek inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Seek to be respectful.
That, and I think what we really should be working towards is the idea that this was the whole thing of me talking about them in the 70s. Gidra was for Asian America, but they were not all East Asian. They were not only talking about just East Asia. They did like the idea, even with Asian America, like they were saying, we're talking about people of the Asian continent. They still, the idea of inclusion was that everyone essentially was equitable. We're not only going to talk about just East Asians. We're not only going to talk about what's happening there. And they're like, we're talking about what's happening in all of these cultures within America, like all the people that have America. And we're also talking about what's happening where, like, America is trying to do their stuff. Because it came around, again, the Vietnam War. So everybody was, very anti-war, especially like doing all of that, what America was doing there.
Right.
But again, even though Black Panthers had a Japanese gun runner, this dude was not going there being like, I'm Black. Like that's the like this is the understanding that people had back then. They knew how to be themselves and represent themselves without trying to claim something else or trying to be like, well, I'm going to be in here and I'm going to do this. This is why you can be like, a whole bunch of people can be Black famous, and like that's the issue. It's really on equity. When they talk about inclusion, they are doing this blanket inclusion of, well, at least we have one person here. But I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense, because even now when I look at just certain things, like to be honest, if it's all one thing, that makes me question. But yeah, again, we wanted equity. We wanted you to stop basically treating race with white on top and everything basic, or white as one end of the spectrum, and yeah, on top, we'll say that, and
Black on the
everything
other,
else,
and
right, black
in
on the
between.
polar opposite end, and then everybody else in between, and then you start treating these people certain ways based on how close they are to white perception, how close they are to white.
Right.
Like, that's what we're talking about. That's what we want. But you don't want that. One, because you either don't see that, or two, you're trying to, again, insert yourself. It's like when we say this is an A and B conversation. So see your way out of it, because you're trying to insert yourself in something that doesn't necessarily need you. It doesn't need you. But yeah, anywho.
Well, that's, I mean, again, DE&I is one of those conversations that can go for a long time.
Okay, so
Because
how
it touches
about
everything.
yes? How about the three of us? Each of us say one takeaway, on this topic. I can go first because I was thinking about it and I asked the question. So my takeaway is aim to be respectful, prioritize that over inclusion, because forced inclusion destroys the respect. That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to the phrase, like you kind of said this earlier, be for your own and be for others. Where, yes, be like Eminem in the sense of understanding who you are, but then also not claiming to be someone or something that you are not.
Right.
I never thought I would say that. But in terms of saying, like, be like Eminem in that regard.
I mean, this is why he's so well protected. This is why we love Eminem.
But, like, you can be a friend of ours, love our culture, all of that, and be respectful enough to not say, well, because I have so many Asian friends, I'm Asian. Because I have so many black friends, I'm black.
Or I can like anoint myself the spokesperson because
Right.
I'm adjacent.
Right.
Never do that.
Right.
If you're adjacent, you should never be the spokesperson for anything.
If you're adjacent,
Second takeaway.
that is your role. You are adjacent to the culture, to the community. You tap somebody else in. That is not your place to then go, well, this is how they do it. Like, tap them in, have them explain. Because guaranteed, there's probably somebody who can do it better.
Right. Late takeaway. I feel like I have so many, but I want one.
Well, I took two, so
you can take two, take three.
Well, I think I will say this. Probably as a warning. We always say, think before you speak. And even if you do still think before you speak and you speak something and you may have to correct yourself at the end or all of that, don't take it personally when someone says no.
Right.
Especially in regards to these systems that have been set up, replacing other systems that were clearly not working anymore. So if a person does not want to be a part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, do not assume that because they are whatever ethnic, cultural background, that they are obligated to tell you anything, to be a part of anything, and then don't take it personally when they actually say no, thank you. Now you can, maybe pose a question as to like saying, hey, I want to know why you don't want to be a part of this. But then even if they say no there, that just means you go and ask somebody else.
Because they don't owe you a response.
Right. That
Actually,
and
correction. They should give you a response. They don't owe you an explanation for said response.
I don't know. I don't think I owe anyone a response.
Yeah, it was like even on that.
I mean, the response could be a short
my
no.
Response was no.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The response
was no. So,
but I don't need to explain why it's a no.
Right.
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. For a lot of people, don't take it personally, and don't take it personally if people don't include you in certain things as well.
If we say it's a right for us to say we don't want to be a part of it and not be a part of it, they have a right to also kind of say we don't want you to be a part of it.
Right.
That kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to this too. It's because of the source of all of this. Most people don't understand, especially with mixing laws. And I mean, like marrying someone of a different race.
I'm sure the minute they legally allowed it, they were like, oh no, this is going to give us legal headaches all over.
But this is what I'm saying with that. There was no, as I look more into it, there were no actual laws against people of different races marrying until there were laws against. So like there was nothing in the beginning of that saying that if you were this race or that race, that you couldn't get married. But then they decided to add those laws, and that's when it became illegal. So
that is a discussion that we can definitely have for another time.
Oh no, saying this is why people will say, because I was thinking of, people be like, well, white people do this all the time, and I was like, yeah, but that was the issue in
that there were more white people doing it all the time.
Yeah, I was like, that was the issue in the first place. And the thing was, most of us actually stopped asking to be included and just created our own, but then you destroyed those.
Right.
So yeah, don't take it personal.
Okay, I'm gonna end the recording.
Thank you all for listening to It Aint New, where if you don't know, now you know. We're Nyke,
Bella,
Estar.
Please show us some love on Spotify by leaving us a rating or a review, and join our Patreon so we can grow and continue to give you all wonderful content.